Wales welcomed Scotland to Cardiff on Saturday for what is always an absolutely wonderful Six Nations fixture. And I've got Taff here to talk through it. Taff, how you doing?
I'm all right, Timmy. How are you?
Very, very well. Now, this game is always very interesting, and I think it's looking like it could be a real cracker on Saturday. Some of the previous games that we've seen, Scotland winning 35-29 last year in Murrayfield. And they won last time in Cardiff as well by 27 points to 26. Now, just what do you remember from those games? Because they sort of do typify what this fixture is really like.
Yeah, I often think that the Wales-Scotland game is the most enjoyable of the Six Nations because there's always an intent to play. Obviously, remember 2 years ago, Scotland went into a 27-0 lead, I think it was, absolutely destroyed Wales, and then the comeback. And of course, when Cardiff feels the energy, it's an amazing place. So yeah, I just remember even as a kid, watching Jonathan Davis running through against Scotland, or Ian Evans, his famous sidestepping through. This was the game where rugby was, for the first time, you actually saw people passing the ball to each other and running. For a lot of in the 80s, early 90s, it was just kick and some people wrestling. So it was one of those games where people seemed to want to be able to want to pass the ball, want to run with the ball, and there seemed to be tremendous skills on display. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not sure we're going to have quite the same level of skill that Ian Evans and Jonathan Davis had back in the day, but from a Welsh perspective, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll get into the team selection shortly, but just an interesting one from Danny Wilson, the Welsh coach, this last week, where he took the personal blame for 2 line-out losses against the English. So I just wanted your perspective, especially as a hooker, an ex-hooker, even, about how you think that is for a coach to do that.
Yeah, look, I think it was very noble of him. I mean, the truth is, it comes down to the execution on the field. Yes, there might have been a tactical decision to make certain calls at certain moments, and he's done the right thing to take the pressure off the players. That team doesn't need any more people saying that they're not up to it. So I think in that sense, it's a very noble thing to do. I think that the truth is they will know that, execution wise, the responsibility comes down to the players. And I wonder whether, Adam Biz obviously dropped out of the squad completely. It looks a little bit like he's kind of taken a bit of a hit for that. I'm not sure whether he calls them, but certainly in terms of the line out, there's a big responsibility on people like him as well to execute well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it must be said, Wales did actually have 100% line out in the last game against the French. I think it was more around the pitch that Beard has maybe stepped aside for. So talking about that 100% line out and 100% scrum, those are 2 big positives for Wales. And I feel like they should really build on that. It's not common in my comments section. Some people are like, no, it was rubbish. They lost by 50 points. They should be told they're rubbish. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately within the camp, and I suppose within Welsh rugby, there's no point in just smashing them even more in terms of creating a negative spiral around them. They have to try and build on some positives. And as you said, yeah, at times their set piece has been good. Their work rate generally has been good. You can't fault the amount of heart and desire. And it's a team searching for identity. Ultimately at this point, things that they've got to hang on to, things that give them a sense of identity and a sense of pride, a sense of togetherness. So for me, I think if it's the scrum, if it's the line out, if it's there, even if it's the speed of their defense, or the defensive shape or things like that, which I think again this week will come under a lot of stress. Even if it's their kicking game, even if it's the relationship between the halfbacks or the fly half and the centers that are scarlet. So I think there is everything you can do that just says, look, this is coming together, and the momentum pulls the group together. I think you have to build on.
Absolutely. And Steve Tandy talks about this really well in almost every press conference, to be honest. They're a coaching team that is relatively new together, trying to build foundations in this team, which is, again, a relatively new thing. So it's going to take time, and they can only layer on so much at a time. So patience, a lot of patience is required. And yeah, it will come. It will come. It will definitely come, but it's going to take longer than this championship through the summer and beyond that, probably.
Yeah, and the question is whether the narrative around Welsh rugby can withstand a long-term vision, or whether the voices and the anger from the different stakeholders, the regions, the journalists, the ex-players, etc., becomes such a weight on them. I mean, Gatland would talk about it for a lot when he was the coach and stuff. It's you're carrying a caravan of perspectives that are embedded in decades and generations of Welsh rugby folklore that at times is very, very hard to shrug. So I think again, this team and this coaching team carry much more than the weight of some lineouts and some defensive drills. They carry the weight of generations of rugby insights, as you might call them.
That's a really valid point. Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to this game coming up on Saturday specifically. And we'll talk first of all about the fact that the roof's going to be closed. It was always going to be closed. It's been agreed pre-tournament. But actually, for Wales playing against Scotland, and you could say the same against France last week, it's probably not in their best interest. They probably want it to be a rainy, wet day when they can, really fight and scrap, and skills are a lot harder.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that seeing so you've got Kinghorn coming back in at fullback and Van der Merwe on the wing. There's a narrative around him that his defense isn't great under the high ball when there's pressure. For me, that was an opportunity. That Wales and Thomas Williams and the whole back three and the Wales's kicking game generally has to create pressure on that Scottish team. So having the roof closed and not being able to scrap for some of those things and create some chaos, I think is probably a bit of a negative in a way, and probably something that they would rather have. But nevertheless, I think they still have to create a sense of disruption, physicality. They have to get in the faces of that Scottish team, and they somehow have to disrupt Finn Russell and just start to put a little bit of doubt in that Scottish team that maybe they can't play with the expansiveness and they can't play with the they don't have it all their own way when they're in terms of being on the front foot. And I think if they don't do that, then they're going to have a very tough day.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's look at this team that has been selected, and we'll just pick out some of the changes, I guess. Really, Sam Costello, first of all, was come in at fly half for Dan Edwards. Now, Steve Candy spoke about this one. He sort of said things like, Dan Edwards hasn't played badly, but he's a young man that's played a lot of rugby. So it sounds like maybe he's a little bit frazzled behind the scenes and just would benefit from a week off. Plus, Sam Costello apparently has been, really performing well in training camp and is a good player, so deserves a chance.
Yeah, and of course, that's the Scarlets then in the midfield. So, as a unit, I think, again, just a little bit of confidence in each other, the ability to be, you're at home, you've got to play with some confidence. I think it's a sound decision, and will give the pack a sense that there's some sense of direction and as I said, mainly confidence that there's an attacking threat or a physical threat or a sense of togetherness in that back line.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of an attacking threat and a physical threat, Hamer Webb comes in and this will be his debut. So congratulations to him. I talked him up at the start of the tournament. I was really impressed with him in the games I saw him play for Leicester, when he's just got an energy about him that I thought Wales could benefit from. A similar sort of energy to James Lowe gives to Ireland. He's in your face. He's aggressive. He's obviously fast and good in the air and all these things as well. But I think his energy will shine through on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important theme, Tim, which is Wales have to bring some physicality and some energy to this game. They might not have the smoothest back line in the world yet. They might not have all these things that you're going to need as a top team to be, but you can't fault their energy. You can't fault their effort, their work rate. And I think having wingers then who want the ball, who want to take the ball into contact and make Scotland defend and be on, I think the other thing is they can't make things easy for Scotland just to go about their game. So I think this type of selection, and obviously Josh Adams and Rhys Zammit as well, have an important part to play in offering that Welsh pack, a sense of go forward and something to get behind. And I think for those reasons, I totally agree with you. That physicality is more important in a way than kind of a finishing speed. It's I want the ball and I'm going to make some people have to tackle me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we move on to the Scots, is there anybody else in this Welsh team, Welsh selection that you want to highlight at all?
No, I think obviously Blair Murray coming back onto the bench. Good to see him. I think he's a very good player. I think the back row, Wainwright has probably been one of the standout players for Wales. I think he will have a big role to play, similarly to what we talked about with the wingers in terms of being able to carry the ball into contact. And I think that's one of the things I want. So that with Plumtree coming into the back row, his work rate in terms of defence, I think, is going to be important. But Wainwright's ball carrying will offer them a target for the pack, but just generally around the field, someone who can actually take the ball into contact and dominate those physical collisions.
Yeah, he does do that. He's also really, really good on his feet in terms of finding an edge to drive through because he's not the biggest, but he
No,
does carry the ball exceptionally well. So I completely agree.
no,
Okay.
he's all elbows. He reminds me, like, when you're playing someone in training, you're like, oh mate, this guy, like, he's hit me again with his elbow. That's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I know those type of players. Okay, let's get the Scottish team up. And there's a few changes in here for Scotland. Some of them forced with 3 injuries from the
Yeah.
England game, players out because of that. But it allows opportunity for 2 of Scotland's best players over the last 6-7 years, Blair Kinghorn and Duhan van der Merwe, to get back in the starting 15. What are you making of this, Taff?
Yeah, I think this shows that Scotland have got an identity. They're bringing players in that can fit the system. I think last week for Townsend, it was quite a big moment for him to lead that team to victory after the Italy game, and a week is a long time in international rugby, and it will be again. Because I think if they can physically dominate Wales, then I can see them being, they'll have the talent and they've got the confidence in that back division to really score a lot of tries against Wales. But it really comes down to that pack, and is that pack able to exert enough pressure to dominate the Welsh? Because I think any backline, however talented, and that Scottish backline is a great backline, will struggle if they don't win up front. And I think that those first 15-20 minutes, I think the Townsend, if he's smart, he'll say we are going to physically dominate them and we're going to earn the right to play, rather than let's go out there and play and then suddenly a couple of things go wrong, or Van der Merwe drops a kick, or just a little couple of things, and then the Cardiff crowd starts to build, and then hang on, there's something's happening here. So my sense would be earn the right to play.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Now, interestingly, in the Scotland back 5 there, they had some options there in terms of who they brought in to cover the injuries, and they've gone with Max Williamson. And I know there's lots of Scottish fans in my comments section who'll be delighted for that because they've been yearning for him to play since the start of this tournament. He's a young man, but he's been playing fantastically well. Gregor Brown, very versatile back 5 forward there, moving to the 6th position. And yeah, I mean, Scotland have been blessed at the start of this tournament with not having many injuries, but now they've got a few. They seem to be able to cover them really comfortably.
Yeah, and that's going to be the mark of a good team, and whether they're developing is whether they the level of intensity, whether the units can work in the same way. So I think for Townsend again, beyond the result and all that sort of thing, and I think it'll be a really interesting day for him as a coach to learn about this squad and to see, okay, have we got people who are able to step in, step up, and not feel like the identity of the team drops away when we have a few injuries? Because as we know, as they're building in this cycle, he's going to need a 25-30 man squad that can all interchange in the right way and not lose their sense of purpose and their sense of and their game principles.
Yeah, completely. Okay, let's talk about tactics for a second. Now, we've kind of gone through this a little bit already, haven't we? It's terms of Scotland really like to play a typically wide game. Yes, they will try and go forward first, but they like to play wide. Wales in recent weeks have struggled with their defence being caught too narrow. I feel like maybe they just aren't trusting each other enough to the player either side of them to be able to push and slide. I think that is going to be the big thing to look out for this Saturday.
Yeah, and I think, back to this, I mean, who knows what Scotland will do, but I'm sure the conversation in Wales has been, okay, we're not going to get caught in that outside centre channel in the way that England were a little bit. So there'll be a lot of work on that. But if I'm Scotland, I'm going to go right through the heart of them early on and to, use the power I've got in the centres to start to bust some holes, put Costello under a pressure early on, whether even if it's Van der Merwe off 10 or things like that. Make that Welsh midfield make some tackles and try to get them on the back foot before we go wide. That would be how I would kind of think is the best way to go here, because there'll be so much appreciation for those wide channels. In fact, what you've got to, I think, do is first of all get them on the back foot and go through the heart of them before you go wide. So the second thing, of course, is the kicking game and how both teams play that. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about the Scott Baldwin tweet about the game plan and the game principles that you have, and I think it's a really interesting thing about your identity. And so, a kicking game or a scrummage game or etc. These come down to the type of players you have and the type of identity you want to play. And so Thomas Williams and Costello, they may want to try and kick not quite as far and allow Adams, Rees-Zammit and Webb on the wing to really put some physical pressure on those Scottish back three and see whether they can create some chaos. And from chaos, I think that's where a lot of Wales' confidence can come from.
Yeah, completely. I've put it up on the screen now. We're not going to go through this line by line clearly, but I just wanted to highlight it because Scott Baldwin here, the former Welsh hooker, has really gone into some great detail about how teams at the elite level build their game models. And I just found it fascinating. So I thought maybe you would too, listener. So go and follow Scott on Twitter and go and dig out this tweet. It was actually a reply to Paul Williams, this one specifically, but very interesting. Go and give it a read if you want to sort of improve your knowledge. And Scott has actually been tweeting a lot this week, and all of it has been absolute gold dust. So go and have a look at that. The other thing I want to focus on, just briefly, is the scrum battle. It's obviously something I'm very passionate about, and the Scottish scrum has been good historically. The last few years, it has been better, but it's not in this championship. Xander Fagerson, I think, is struggling with something. And I think one of the things that Wales have done quite well so far is their scrum. So I feel like if Wales are going to get a foothold in this game, if they can get in there and destabilise that Scottish scrum, that could be a really good entry point for them.
Yeah, and of course they've swapped out Turner for Cherry, right, in the front row. So again, I think that signals that Scotland understand and Townsend understands that battle within from five and the scrum and the line out is going to be key. And he's a smart enough coach to know that, back to that theme of earning the right to play, I think they're going to have to do that. If they start to become destabilized in their first phase in those scrum battles and line out and things like that, Russell's a magician, but even he will struggle once the atmosphere changes and everyone, and they're starting to get on the back foot. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that physicality that Scotland will need is something that you can see reflected in the selection.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into predictions. Taff, who do you think is going to win? By how much? All of that good stuff.
The challenge I have is I don't know how Wales are going to score a lot of points, and I can see how Scotland score a lot of points. So, but I'm going to go for 18-15 to Wales. I'm going to trust in Welsh physicality and that Scotland kind of implode. So I think that's the only way that result happens.
Is it 6 penalties to 5? Is it?
No, I think Wales might score one try, and Scotland will score at least 2.
Okay, interesting. I think Wales will improve again. I think they'll go up a level from the last game against the French, and I think they will score 2, maybe 3 tries. But I think the Scots will exploit the space that is ringing around Cardiff at the moment, and they are so well placed to do it. If they can execute as well as they did against England, then I can see them scoring 5, maybe 6 tries. So I'm going to go for something like 32-15, maybe something like that. 32-15.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I think my heart would tell me 18-15 to Wales. My head says yes, more like 15-32 to Scotland. So yeah, no, I think you're probably right on that one. But as I said at the beginning, I still think the Wales-Scotland game is a great game because I feel like they both basically say, well, we both hate England and we both like playing rugby, so let's just do that today. You know, all the other games, all games have their own kind of sort of narrative, but Wales-Scotland feels like we're here to play rugby. We're not here to make any kind of further major political points or to talk about things that happened 300 years ago. We're here to play rugby and have a few beers, so let's just do that.
What a great sentiment to finish this podcast on. I think everybody should do that this weekend. Fantastic stuff. Okay, folks at home, that is what we think. But what do you think? Anything that we didn't mention that you think will be important, let's have it in the comment section down below, and I'll join you there for a really friendly conversation. Give this video a thumbs up way down there if you don't mind. It helps other great rugby fans just like you find it. It just leaves me to say, Taff, thank you so much for your time and best of luck tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Timmy. A great pleasure as always.
Absolutely. And people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.